So the year was 2006, and I was sitting on a conveyor belt that ran through Harvard Law School. And it would make frequent drop-offs at Wall Street firms across the country. And all of these firms were indistinguishable. They featured the same ampersands, the partners wore the same pinstripes, all of the documents smelled like something you would pull out of your grandmother's attic. And at the end of that summer, I got a call from a buddy of mine. We had both played high school football. Now, I know I look like a strapping young male, but as a senior back in Mount Pleasant High School, I was 5'9" and a half, 163 pounds, and that was with the protein shakes and the bananas. And my buddy was also an undersized football player, but we both loved the game. And so I go to this camp, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and the coach comes out and says, one of our volunteer coaches has not shown up. So it's 2006, and I'm on my BlackBerry, so don't judge me, but I'm on the BlackBerry. And I look up, and I think to myself, okay. He says, do we have anyone who could fill in for this coach? I'm thinking to myself, I played football in Texas, home of Friday Night Lights, so I raised my hand, and he said, all right, coach, where are you from? I said, Mount Pleasant High School, Mount Pleasant High School. All right, what's your name? Coach Roberts. Coach Roberts, you have group 6. I had absolutely no clue what this man was talking about. Group 6 consisted of 60 sixth graders, none of whom had any athletic talent whatsoever. They couldn't pack pedal, they couldn't run forward. Even worse than that, their parents had taken them to Academy, to the Nike outlet, and they had headbands and wristbands and ankle bands. They were just doing it, they were protecting the house, they were all of the things. So these kids couldn't play football. They had a coach who couldn't coach football. And for the next 72 hours, we spent most of our days together. And at the end of that experience, I recognized something that had never happened before in my life. For 3 days, I did not have to set my alarm clock to get up. Every morning I was up and I was excited to coach these young men. And the thing that really astounded me was the fact that for very brief moments around a football field, kids from the south side of Chicago, kids from the north side of Dallas, these are kids whose parents don't shop at the same types of grocery stores, they don't go to the same types of churches, they don't drive the same types of cars. But for very brief moments on a football field, socioeconomic status and race lift away, and you have 11 men who are trying to make a play work. So I decided I wanted to be a football coach. And the first thing I did was call my mom. You don't know Gwen Roberts. Gwen Roberts, for 30 years, was an elementary school principal. And so I call and I say, Mom, I want to be a football coach. She says, oh, honey, that's so great. Do you think your law firms will let you sort of do this as a pro bono project? I said, no, Mom, I want to do this full time. She said, okay, let me put your dad on the phone. You don't know the Reverend Kurt Roberts, 38 years, minister of the Mount Olive Baptist Church. Reverend Roberts gets on the phone. He says, son, what's wrong with you? I said, well, I work this camp. He said, yeah, whatever. Let me ask you this. Do you know how much debt you're in? I did. So at the time, I had spent 5 years in Cambridge, had racked up $250,000 in debt. You mathematicians will know that this is $250,000. Pre-interest, mind you, pre-interest. I said, Dad, listen, Bank of America does a great job of reminding me every single day that from the moment Dean Elena Kagan hands me that diploma, I have 6 months of freedom. But Dad said, well, you also remember our deal, and the deal was this. My parents would pay for undergrad, but I would pay for grad and law school. I said, well, technically, Dad, you kind of owe me money. I got a full ride to go to Texas, and you never paid me back, so I could use that money to pay for law school. Being the minister that he is, he said, well, let's pray, son. And so we pray. Prayer ends, they hang up the phone, and I write a letter to every team in the NFL. Okay, how many are there? How many are there? 32. I'm gonna say the name of a team, and you're gonna say no. You ready? Chargers. No. Bills. No. Patriots. No. Cowboys. No. Okay, it's getting bad now. Okay, listen. I get the point. I got 31 rejections. As soon as I would put a letter in the mail, a rejection letter would come the next day. From those 31 rejections, I remember taking the letters and putting them up in my apartment in the hallways, and my friends would come over and listen, these are classmates who are headed to the White House and to clerk for Scalia. And they said, Daron, what in the heck is wrong with you? And finally, I got the one yes that I needed. So Herm Edwards, head football coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, calls and he says, I need to speak with Daron Roberts. I'm not convinced it's Herm Edwards, mind you, okay? So I said, yes, son, what's wrong with you? I said, well, nothing that's been documented. Here's the deal, I work this campus, yeah, whatever. Listen, I don't even open my own mail, but my assistant got your letter, she put it on my desk. I don't know why you want to do this, but take out a pen. So I take out my Pilot V5 Precise pen. And he says, write this down. Training camp intern. Training camp intern. No pay. No pay. No benefits. So at this point, I'm wondering, why do I need the pen, right? No pay, no benefits, 18-hour days. He says, son, I need an answer right now. It took me 2 seconds to say, yes, I'm in. So after graduation, I drove my 2002 Tahoe from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Kansas City, Missouri. And for all intents and purposes, I was the grunt. So if the offensive lineman needed 35 barbecue sandwiches, I was their guy. If the defensive lineman needed 2 cases of Skoal, and I know a lot of you, you're refined people. Skoal, this is chewing tobacco, okay? I was the guy who went from 7-Eleven to 7-Eleven to get as many things of Skoal as I could, and I would head back to Arrowhead. For 6 months, I slept in Arrowhead Stadium. I had a blow-up twin mattress and slept there because I wanted to be the first face that Herm Edwards saw every day that he walked in at 4:15. And my only hope was that if I could just hold out for an entire season, I would have a chance to make it. So at the end of the season, we went 4-12. And you mathematicians will also know this is not a good record. And there's this phenomenon called Black Monday in the NFL. This is not to be confused with Black Friday, which is a day when you can get great deals on electronics. Black Monday in the NFL is the Monday after the last game of the regular season, and this is the day when coaches get fired. And so I watched these coaches walk into Herm Edwards' office, walk out, and they have a short amount of time to get all their belongings and exit the building. So his secretary comes to my office, which was really a converted closet. We had torn the door off the hinges. So she knocks on the frame and she says, Coach Edwards would like to see you. I'm walking into his office and I'm thinking to myself, well, technically I can't get fired. Listen, if you were to Google Daron Roberts and Kansas City Chiefs in 2007, absolutely nothing would come up. I had to sneak into the team picture, all right? I had to sneak on the planes. I got kicked off of one. For all intents and purposes, I was not there. And so I walk into his office and I sit down and Coach Edwards says, we really appreciate your contributions. Oh, why did you? That is the death blow. So I'm just bracing and I'm thinking to myself, this is not gonna go over well in Mount Pleasant, Texas, that I got fired from an internship. And I hear the sound of a piece of paper slide across his desk. And I look up and I see the NFL shield. and Coach Edwards says, welcome to the National Football League. This is your first coaching contract. Now listen, 3 years of law school, I took out that Pilot V5 Precise pen. I saw something that resembled my name and a line, and I could have started a fire in Arrowhead Stadium. I mean, I scribbled my signature so fast. He's like, hold on. Hey, son, hold on. Don't you want to review the terms? I said, no. You take this. This is for you. Execute that as soon as humanly possible. That's how I got my start in the league. I spent 7 years. I coached with the Lions and coached in West Virginia and with the Cleveland Browns. And then returned to the University of Texas because after getting fired from the Browns, my son walked up to me and I was scrambling eggs. And he said, you eat breakfast? He was 3 at the time. I'm like, yes, Dylan. He walks away. Comes back, you eat breakfast? So I turned to my wife and I said, hey, Hillary, we're spending a lot of money on this private school that we're sending Dylan to. And I don't know if it's too late to get a refund, but we have our receipts. What's wrong with him? And Hillary, being Hillary, turns to me and says, tell me the last time that you had breakfast with Dylan. And so smirk turns to silence, and I realize that I can't even think of the last time that I had breakfast with my son. And the cruel irony was this: I had spent the majority of 7 years with other people's sons, and my own son did not know me. So I get to the University of Texas, and I'm teaching classes, and the first question I ask students, and I've taught over 1,000 students here at the University of Texas, the first question I ask is, what is holding you back? And so undergrads, being undergrads, they have clarifying questions, and they want to know if it's graded, and I say, listen, just write the response down. And I've collected these responses, and what would you guess is the word that keeps percolating to the surface? It's good, you can read, fear. Fear, fear, fear. And as you start to unpack the responses, it's not just fear, but it's a fear of taking risks and a fear of rejection. Now, Bronnie Ware was a hospice provider, and she asked people, men and women on their deathbeds, what was their major regret, right? What were some of their major regrets? And this one response keeps coming over and over and over back up in her work. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself. Now, in ancient times, the Egyptians would write a question on papyrus if they were considering a risk or a big decision. And they would go to the oracle and they would slide this request underneath the door, and they would wait for some response. Perhaps it was a raven flying from above, all right? Today we have Instagram stories and the poll. We poll people, we ask, hey, should we go and join this startup? Hey, should we leave our jobs? And it's very difficult for people to understand and to figure out at what point they should jump. And this is the reason why it's IKEA. It's IKEA's fault. Economists have determined that there's this phenomenon called the IKEA effect. Now, we've all been to IKEA, and you walk in and there are these pristine desks, and the light is flowing oh so gently along the oak or the faux oak. And you see this desk, and you start to imagine it in your apartment, and so you buy it. And they throw that box on top of your Prius, and you head home. And then you realize that you don't have any screwdrivers, you don't know what a mallet is, and you start building this thing. And what you have at the end sort of resembles a desk. It's wobbly. One of the drawers won't quite pull out. But here's the thing, you've spent so much time building this thing that it's yours and you keep it. And this IKEA effect is really the new age notion of sunk cost. So what we're finding in the research is that many people are willing or unwilling to change their circumstance or take a risk because they built so much time building their status quo. And they don't want to even think outside the box. They want to continue to live as they are. So I've done a cruel thing, and I have a research team here at the University of Texas. We have started to introduce strains of rejection to students in my class. So for example, one of my assignments is a rejection challenge. So in pairs, I send students out, and they have to go and ask a barista at a Starbucks for a free drink. So you have one partner is videotaping this episode, okay? And it's great. You should watch the footage. I mean, the person videotaping the one who's going for the rejection, her hand's shaking. She's nervous, okay? And we asked them beforehand, hey, listen, how likely do you think you ought to take risk in life? And then we asked them the same question afterwards. And what we're finding is this: the more that we are exposing people to rejection, the more likely it is that they are willing to take a chance in the future. And here's the reason why. This is my theory, is that we build up so much anxiety over the decision to make the plunge. And once we survive it, we look back and we say, that wasn't so bad. Here's another assignment. This is something you can do at home, but you won't because you're afraid. It's the rejection resume. So I want you to take that pristine resume that you have. Under education, I want you to list all of the schools that you didn't get into. Every single one. Under work experience, list every job you didn't get. List every internship you were turned away from. Under honors and awards, the same. Every distinction that you did not get. And here's what I tell you will happen if you sit down by yourself and look back over this list of rejections. You will start to realize that at the time they seemed like something you would never be able to overcome. But now you look back and you'll say, I can weather that storm. And perhaps I have the courage to move on to the next risk. So I'm imploring you not to think outside of the box. I'm begging you to burn the whole damn thing altogether. Go out there and get rejected. Thank you.